I just want to touch on one thing when it comes to shift average. So one thing I wanted to talk about was just a little bit of mindset stuff. I'm sure Blake has a ton of stuff on this as well. But remember, I feel one thing I've been reflecting on a lot recently is all of us at the level that we're at, as the top performers that we are, so much of it is emotional and mental management throughout the day, right? And you're gonna have days that suck, you're gonna have hours that suck, and there's gonna be the ups and the downs. One thing I just have constantly been thinking about is I'm one set away, not just from my entire day or my weekend or whatever changing, but my momentum feeling like is back. Because that's the thing, sometimes when you get in that little slump when you've just been beat up a million times by customers, or you're at zero for the day and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, like we start getting a little anxious, right? And this is where Calvin is an absolute monster because he's just even keel the entire time, right? But for me, I'm a little bit more emotional than Calvin, so I have to think my way out of that a lot of the time, and I'm constantly just reminding myself I'm literally just one interaction away from all of my momentum shifting, not just my day sales-wise shifting, but all of my momentum shifting, because we've all had those tough days. Then we sold a Siggear and Ulti, and we're like, we're back, baby, right? And just constantly reminding yourself that that is literally right around the corner, and you have to be in a peak emotional state in order to maximize that. But that's something I've reflected on a lot for sure, and that's one thing that helps me keep my shift average up, is just constantly being on point for that. I remember I worked a volleyball show last year, and I was luckily I was with Celia the whole time, so we were shooting the shit, having fun. But I realized like 10 hours went by, I had one interaction with somebody that was like just total shit. At the end of the day, 10 hours later, I closed an Ulti with steak knives and upsold gadgets and stuff for 3,500 CPO. 10 hours in it with one maybe two interactions.
It'd be like that.
But it's like, I knew I'm just one order away from my momentum at this show changing, and that's it. For us as salespeople, so much of it is momentum. So.
Yeah, that's huge. That's like half the challenge right there, right? And for everyone, it looks different. And that's the thing that I have to remind myself, and everyone should remind themselves, is like your shift average is important, but we get so caught up on that number, and there's never 2 days that look the same.
Facts.
There's 2 days that look similar. There's never 2 days that look the same. So don't compare your day with your past results. And it's hard to do because you're like, it's not looking how I want it to look, right? And so never get in your head about that, because it's not going to be the same. And then you got to figure out what's going to keep you going and remind yourself. Like for me is like, hey, remember when you just made the switch of like you didn't care anymore? And it was just like, you're going to still be happy regardless. And I had to remind myself of the shows that I started to do this and had major success. So I had to remind myself of those past experiences. Another thing is like, I always like to ask myself, am I in the state of mind to meet the $1 million customer? And a lot of the times the answer is no. So I have to get in the state of mind of like, okay, like I'm not going to be able to even attract or even interact with that customer that has the potential, right? And so I really have to check myself, and that will definitely help your shift average, which is like, okay, I need to be a different rep. I need to stop being so hungry. The results are going to come, and you got to have confidence in that. Like the results are going to come regardless. And once you know and you have confidence in that, it's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. I think sometimes we can get really in our head too. It's very hard for me, especially because I work with Jason Jeffrey. Jason Jeffrey is one of the most consistent human beings I've ever met in my life. He's not even human, bro. Like just 7K, 8K, 9K, 6K. Like his just consistently day after day. But I've also worked with people who are like human, like Curtis, who's unbelievable. Who I remember texting Curtis and being like, "Yeah, man, I had a weird weekend. I had a 2K day on Friday at the stock show. I had a 1K day on Sunday, and then I had a pretty big day on Saturday. I was like, I sold 18.5K. He's like, yeah, mine went very similar. He's like, yeah, 4 or 5K on Friday, 3-4K on Sunday. I'm like, what'd you sell on Saturday? He goes, 34 grand. I'm like, Jesus, like what? But like that's how sales looks a lot of the time, and you just have to realize that that's how it is. And there's been so many stories too. I mean, like the Maricopa that we worked, and in March, if you were at the coordinator summit, I shared this, but like, dude, I'm going into, people are dropping 10K days, like clockwork, Friday and Saturday. Like everybody was at like, 20 grand or whatever, 15, 20 grand. I'm going in at like 6,500. I had a 3K day on Friday and a $3,500 day on Saturday, and 2K of that was one order. And so I was just, I was feeling like I was getting a little beat up. And I had a 17.5K day on Sunday. And it was like, I think 2 package deals for like 7 grand. No, 2 package deals for 10 grand were my first 2 orders, and I was like, let's see how big we can make this. And then shit just kept flowing. But yeah, keeping your head on a swivel and realizing that yes, things are going to look very different day to day, just as Blake said. And you never know what's going to happen. It's about the long game, not the short term focus. So